don't really want to.
And this is my best mate, Nigel.
I don't want to do it right now. Well, it just...
Where you going, man?
Look, I just need a 5-minute break, please. Look, I don't want to...
Mate, aren't you? We're a team.
Sorry, mate.
Come on, we're going to do our show together, man.
I don't want to do it. I think it's time I did my own show. Yeah? Yeah, I've got ideas. I think you're holding me back. Same old Aussie and Nigel. What about just Nigel?
I thought you was my best
I've got
mate,
ideas.
man.
I could be a star. Where'd he go? Hey, this is Nigel, and this is my... Oh, bugger.
What are you doing? What do you think you're doing?
Welcome to Godfather TV with your host, Jeff Dennis. Chuck Encenius, Technical Director, Al Mead, with Walter Webb as Ozzy. Tonight's guest, Chris Sheridan.
I'm McKenna Dennis, and Jeff just isn't my father, he's the Godfather. Check him out on Godfather TV.
Hey, my name is Raimi, and you need to be watching my favorite show, Godfather TV.
I'm Eddie, and you're watching Godfather TV.
Hey DFW, how's it going? Welcome back to Godfather TV. Man, it seems like we've been doing this show for 6-7 years already, but it's only been 8 episodes, 9 episodes. But before we get started with tonight's show, I want to get the activist side out of the way. You know, there's been a big problem in this world that I've been reading about lately, and it's male seal impotence. It's become a global, none of this COVID stuff, that's the real epidemic, is baby seal impotence, and we have to do something about it. So if you want to donate to anything, to our cause, the number's going to be down on the screen. It's going to be 555-666-ARF-ARF. So now that we got that out of the way, now what we were going to do is we're going to do ya.
Do ya?
Yeah. So as one more time, I want to give it up to Al Mead back there, our production god. Ash Jeeves, Lisa's in the house. And once again, without further ado, the Godfather himself, Jeff Dennis.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in again. We love you guys so much. Thanks, Walter, for the intros. And tonight is a very special show to me. I know you guys probably don't know Chris as well as I do, but we have Chris Sheridan from Sweet Savage. And we're thrilled to have you here.
Thrilled to be here.
Chuck was living in New Mexico at the time, and he was living in California, so they didn't get to experience the onslaught of Sweet Savage from 84 to 88 and 87-ish in Dallas when y'all took the whole scene by storm. So we're going to educate people tonight that might not know what's going on.
Let's do it.
So you guys came from Columbus, Ohio. Well, 3 of you did, I guess.
Yeah, the 3 of us.
Kind of tell us your earliest beginnings in a short story. We're trying to focus more on here, but...
Well, we'll get us here.
Get us
we'll
here,
get us to Dallas.
Tell us how it all started in Columbus, Ohio, and then...
Well, actually, it was Athens, Ohio, a little small town. Appalachian. There was a lot to do. We skateboarded. My brother Lane and I skated, and Joey C. Jones skated with us. We all went to junior high and high school and hung out, and we knew we weren't going anywhere skateboarding, right? No one comes out of the Midwest to skateboarding. And we were listening to rock and roll, so we had Double Live Gonzo on, and If You Want Blood, we were listening to all the really good stuff from the late 70s. And at some point, we all just kind of looked at each other and it's like, well, why don't we just get some instruments and play a rock and roll band? We're not going to go anywhere skating. So, okay, we did. So it was these 3 guys that skated and liked to go to shows and rock and roll, and we just got it together. I was a little bit younger, a couple years younger than Joey and Lane, so they played in a band, and I was kind of the roadie. I wasn't really playing with them in high school. But they'd play after the high school football game and dances and any gig they could. But to get out of Athens, the next place to go was Columbus, Ohio, and there were bands like the Gods and Rosie, really big drawing local bands that vibrant music scene. So we all moved up there and kind of played in different bands, and things took a turn. Lane moved down here. Our father had moved down, and he actually wanted to go to LA, but Mark Chatfield, this guitar player from the Gods, and later Rosie, said, no, you really got to check out Dallas. Don't use it as a stopping point on the way to LA. Consider Dallas like a place to go. because I think that was back when, like,
Why would he
Mother
say?
Blues-
Why would he say that? I mean,
Well, he knew. He obviously knew he had been here.
because the
and
only time
knew.
the Gods ever played here, they played with Metallica and got booed off the stage at the Bronco Bowl.
Yeah, I can see that happen. That's not
I'm
a good.
just, I
That's
mean,
not
'cause
a good mix.
everybody was wanting Metallica.
Yeah,
Though. It wasn't
yeah.
nothing to do with the Gods, but
What tour was that, Jeff?
84, 85,
Sorry,
somewhere right in the early days before they got real big.
Ride the Lightning then. Cool.
Probably somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
and that was kind of after the heyday of the Gods, so
Yeah.
they were kind of a shadow
Yeah.
band by then. But anyway, on some good advice, said really consider moving to Dallas, and one by one we did. Lane came down here, and he was playing around, getting to know the people, and I would come down and visit, so I met a lot of people, and, people that we know, like, Davies and Ken Kudelka and all those people, got to introduce to them very early on. And then I came down and I said, what are we going to do? Let's get a band together. Who are we going to get? And I said, well, remember, Joey's actually doing really well because he had so improved his game in Columbus. He was, really hitting the clubs hard, playing every chance he could get. And we just sort of got the old skateboard group back together, and it all fell into place. And we were even playing out, sitting in with bands like Black Star and stuff at Matley's, even before we did our first gig as a band. So there was kind of a buzz already generating. But to put a period on this, we came to a place, Dallas, that had a really vibrant music scene. It had all the elements. There were the clubs to play. There were all the incentives, all the ladies' nights and, jam nights and good record stores and really good music stores and melody shops. It had the whole ecosystem that a really vibrant music scene needed. And so we kind of came into something that was already happening, and then we brought our own to it, and we, probably in some way made it even more happening, at least on certain nights.
Yeah, I know. I remember you and Lane showing up at some of the clubs, and nobody knew who y'all were, of course, because y'all were new to town. Everybody's like, who in the hell are those guys? And word was already spreading, before you guys even ever set foot on stage. And I know when you first got here, y'all were looking for a singer because you didn't know if Joey was going to make it down or not. And I showed Ramey this. Y'all gave me a business card with your and Lane's phone number still on it.
Right.
Y'all wrote it in ink, and you told me, you look cool. I think you said, I heard you used to be a singer. You look cool. Here's our card. I'm thinking, okay. And then I'm glad I never auditioned because Joey would have stole that show easy because wouldn't good. I wouldn't be good at that kind of music, I don't think. But yeah, you guys already had a big following, like you said, before you even came down here. And then I think the first show I saw was Matley's, completely freaking packed. Y'all walked in, 15 marshals on both sides of the stage. You already looked professional, your first show. What's the deal? Did y'all have that, something y'all planned or?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had really cut our teeth, and we were pretty seasoned by the time Sweet Savage actually got together and played our first show. We had already been playing together, on and off, maybe some combination of each other, but certainly playing in other bands. And we learned a lot from bands like the Gods and Rosie and Columbus, how to put on like a really next level professional show. So in each of the road crew wore black T-shirts instead of a white shirt, so they kind of fade in the background. You make sure there's a scrim around the drum riser. If your marshals get all nicked, which they always do, getting in and out of the trucks, you come in with a Sharpie and just, the part where the wood's exposed, just make that black again. These little things that you're not really supposed to notice, but you notice something else. It's like in film, cinematography and sound design. You don't leave a movie going, wow, that was great sound design, but you love the movie, and a good sound design will really help with that. So we had a lot of the little touches down, and like I said, we were seasoned, we were ready to go. This was kind of a culmination of everything that we had learned up until that point that we were finally able to put together into a single unit, Sweet Savage, and just took off from there.
How'd you come up with the look? I mean, at that time, 84, there really wasn't glam yet. You wouldn't say there was a lot of glam or really shocking bands like that. And then you all come out in pink, purple, turquoise, spandex, hair to the ceiling, women's underwear.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think we broke ground with a lot of that
yeah,
stuff. That would have
it was.
preceded Poison by years.
It definitely got everybody's attention,
Well, we wanted to
especially
be
the
outrageous,
females.
and we saw what was happening in LA, like in, between 81 and 83. Bands like Great White, Rat, were starting to come out. Their videos were coming out, and there was kind of that LA look, which we liked, but we wanted to kind of do it our own way. And I swear, I think my brother's idea had everybody be blonde. You know, because everyone had like a blonde singer, but everyone else was brunette, or to be like one guy that was blonde, you know. We're just like, no, we're all frontmen, even the drummer. You know, we're all standalone, you know, rock stars. That's how we wanted to, you know, present ourselves. And actually, Joey came out with the pink and blue, kind of the boy and girl, you know, baby colors. And then the black and white. We did a little bit of red and black, but that was Motley Crue had really kind of monopolized that by then. So we only did that for maybe a month, and it was once we made the shift, I was resistant, like pink and blue. I don't wear pink and blue. And then I thought, well, you know, there's Twisted Sister. You know, they're wearing fuchsia and, you know, and all this crazy makeup, and it seemed to be something that was unique. Not everyone else was doing anything like that, but we really spent a lot of time with that too. We made our own clothes, just make sure that the little details were all together. Because I think that, you know, like I said, you don't really notice it necessarily overtly, but it makes just the whole package seem better and more professional. And we went with it. You know, we
got people's attention for sure. I mean, clubs were just packed every time y'all played. I don't think I ever saw a show where it wasn't packed, even on a Wednesday night. And like I said, it was mainly girls, but that got the guys' attention. So there you go. All of a sudden, the thrashers and the death metal guys started kind of wandering in, all embarrassed, but they were going to be there because all the girls were there. So it was a perfect combination.
Yeah, and you know, we were, I think, you know, certainly heavier than Poison, even throughout.
Yeah.
So we had that glam look and image, but behind it, we grew up listening to Priest and Maiden, and, you know, all this stuff. So actually, some of our early original songs were even heavier than that. But it was, so we had that, you know, kind of pedigree. Right. You know, our DNA had much heavier 70s, early 80s. You know, even British kind of rock and roll thing. And even though, we're wearing lipstick and have the peroxide and everything going on, behind it, we really had balls and stuff that some of the glam and poppy bands were kind of a little bit lighter. And we had that heavier underpinning. So, it had kind of the best of both. I think, with even musicians, like talking about, death metal guys, it's like, may not have been their cup of tea as far as the way we looked, but, there was no bullshit when it came down to the musicianship, and like I said, our inner core was a much heavier bass.
And y'all would do a lot of cool covers, and then you'd mix in, or even you're starting with your first or second show, you'd mix in your originals.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "What was that?" I said, "Oh, they already wrote songs, and then they would do some cool covers that nobody else was doing, and a few popular ones, and then Joey talking shit to everybody in the crowd, and it was just sort of magical time. And so about 85, y'all went to record your album. 85,
we did. Yeah.
How'd you end up with Dana Strum and all that?
Actually, I may not be the right person to answer that one because I'm not exactly sure how specifically Dana got involved. We had been talking to a lot of people. There was this woman, Lucy Forbes. She knew everybody. She would get us in the good table at the Rainbow and take us in the side door at the Roxy. She had some clout. Like we'd go partying at Jimmy Bain's house, and Dio showed up and he smoked all our weed, and then he left. Like, cool. Thanks, Dio. But he was fun to hang out with. So we had some connections. We kind of very early on got involved with people who knew other people. Plus the gigs that we did there. We went in '85, I think in February or March. And it did really well everywhere we played. It was, great response. So there was already some buzz. And again, like we did here, even more so when we went to LA the first time and the second time too. We were so seasoned from playing, all the clubs here that when we get to LA, we're the new band, but we've been together probably for 5 or 6 years, and in some version or another since then. So we're very, very experienced. We had our own truck, we had our own crew, we had all this stuff. And then we came back in the summer of '85, and that's when we hooked up with Dana. He and I spent several days just in an apartment bedroom. He's doing drums on his shoulder and his knee, and I'm just plunking around with a little practice amp, and we sort of did the pre-production, which for what would later become our EP. It was initially just going to be a demo tape that we were going to shop, to the labels and everything, but it was it was so good that we're just like, well, geez, let's just print this thing.
It's
you know,
really
start
good.
selling
And
it.
it ended up #1 on Kerrang! Magazine. I used to buy the Kerrang! Magazine at the record stores, and I was going through going, where's all my favorite bands at? Who's number Sweet Savage? What the fuck? You know, it was
Oh, yeah,
great.
we were ahead of Cinderella.
Yeah,
and
I know. I
Poison.
couldn't
That was
believe
even
it.
before Guns N' Roses
Yeah.
and some of that second wave of
Yeah.
the LA rock came out. But yeah, we just hit the ground running from day one here, and same thing in LA. But boy, there's just nothing like playing out all the time.
Mm.
You know, if you play once a month, that's good. But boy, if you can play a couple nights a week, you know, you're just
Y'all did a lot of
second
Wednesday.
nature.
Y'all did a lot of Wednesday through Sundays, like Savvy's.
2 sets, 5 nights
Yeah,
a
and
week.
y'all get an opening band that was always really cool, and they were helping them out, and then y'all would
Yeah.
do 2 sets. Place would be packed. It was great. To me, I always like to pick talent out. Y'all were a can't miss. They're okay for sure. They're going to be famous. Pantera, for sure they're going to be famous. I even told Daryl when he was like 14, "You're going to be famous." He's like, "You think so?" I told Ron Taylor, "You're going to be famous." I'll pick them out, and I know, but y'all were a can't miss to me, and I can't believe y'all missed. I mean, I
Well,
just,
we shot ourselves in the foot. You know?
I know. I
We
just-
committed
couldn't-
suicide, I guess you could call it.
I guess, I know it's probably a sore subject, but what happened? I mean,
Yeah.
I was at y'all brought the label to Savvy's. Was it Warner Brothers or
Yeah, it was Warner Brothers.
Dana
and,
was there.
A&M, yeah, Dana Strom flew
A&M?
out.
Yeah, and y'all, they all had the front row, the front tables.
Yeah.
And y'all
It was a
came
great
out, I was like, this
showcase.
is it. They're getting signed tonight.
Yeah.
What happened?
And, you know, there's a number of things that either didn't happen or went wrong. While we were in the studio, though, recording what became the EP in the summer of '85, we were approached by some label called Enigma. Never heard of them before.
What?
They were an
Yeah,
independent.
at the time they were
It
new.
was, you know, they didn't have distribution through Columbia, which they later did, and sort of got absorbed in, you know, in the larger label situation. They actually offered us like a $30,000 deal, and we're just like, you know, if we're getting these bites this early, and this is kind of an unknown label, and you think, yeah, you can put out a self-produced thing, you can sign with an independent, but we knew distribution was key. That's everything. You get the tour support, you get the advertising and promoting, you know, then you really have a shot, you know, at doing something with it. So we turned it down, and that's the exact
Deal.
They went right to Poison after. And Poison took it.
Next thing you know, Poison's on every channel,
Yeah,
every
yeah.
tour.
And Columbia picked up Enigma,
No.
probably because of
Could've been
Poison,
them.
made a real label out of it. And they did, and, you know, in hindsight, you know, maybe it would have been better to take the first bite or an earlier bite and then make the most of it, which is what Poison did. We kind of held out, and that was
that
at the
a-
time, seemed like a good strategy.
Was that a group decision, or was it one person saying, hell no, and the rest of y'all going, come on,
I would have signed the
man."
first record deal in blood. I was ready to go, you know? But, you know, we all had a voice in it and thought about it. And also Dana Strum. And it was a Weintraub. I think, was it Jay Weintraub? One of the Weintraub family, the big you know, Hollywood names in management and production, artist representation and everything. One of the sons, I guess, Weintraub, he wanted to do some management with us and shop us around a little more. So it was a group, but it was also some advice that we had from people that we thought knew more than us and were more connected. And Dana's certainly somebody very, very connected. He helped Randy Rhoads get into Ozzy. He was instrumental in every sense of the word in Motley Crue's first record. I think he played bass on some of the songs.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think we were in the right, you know, set of people at the right time, and it seemed like
Yeah,
the right thing
hindsight's
to do.
2020, but at the time,
Yeah.
who's this label?
Yeah, no, that could have been stupid. We could have made a bad decision and signed the first thing,
Yeah.
and then got lost in the shuffle,
Could've.
or you know, didn't get the push that we thought that we needed.
But did y'all actually turn down Warner Brothers or A&M too? I heard after that night, actually got offered another deal.
Well,
Or
it
is
was
that-
always like a negotiation. There was an offer and then a negotiation, and some things happened, some things didn't happen. One thing, and you know, I kind of hate to say this, but there was some comparison, just because the labels and everything in LA were very LA-centric, because that's where they were and that's where they lived. They were making some comparisons between Joey and Vince Neil, and I guess I can kind of see that. I mean, there's a little bit of that nasal quality to the voice, but I never really thought of Joey that way because he to me, growing up, and we're playing, Bon Scott AC/DC, and I'm saying, that's this guy's voice.
Yeah.
This is the stuff he can do. He wasn't a David Lee Roth, greasy whiskey voice, but man, he could do anything in that Bon Scott range. Well, he could really kind of do anything, but I never would have, and we did crew for maybe the first 3 months or something when we were playing, just because we had to fill up this 2-set thing with, cover tunes until we were able to rotate more of our originals in. But I was like, what? Like, well, there already is
So
a Vince
was that
Neil.
something they didn't like?
Yeah, they didn't like that.
Were they trying to say, replace your singer and we'll sign you, or?
Well, they didn't really say that, but they just felt that it was there was already a Vince Neil, and I think it's like in the movie industry, when somebody comes up with a movie, everybody else wants to copycat it, Same thing with, music. A certain band comes out, Metallica gets signed, starts selling, and then everybody wants a metal band. But they don't want them too much like each other either. So some people felt that, and I think it was one of those labels that you were talking about. I think that was one of the words from them, that they were hesitant, I guess, for that. And, we never would have thought of replacing anybody in the band. That wasn't even on the radar, because we had done everything on our own up until that point to get us to that point. Why change a recipe?
Right.
This is what you want. If you want to sign this is the band to sign. But I think if, had we signed something maybe earlier on, we would have had the benefit of more years of putting out records before the whole 80s collapsed. And then I think that's how you really can grow as an artist. You can, as a player and as a band, there's nothing like touring to get tight and consistent, and just, that second nature where you don't even have to look at the other guy and you know what they're going to do. But recording and writing new songs and recording those, that's a way to really develop as a band, as a entity.
Yeah, because y'all had a lot of other songs besides the EP that, most of us were waiting on to come out. Why is there not another record yet? What are they waiting for?
Yeah, well, we were
Never
touring
saw the
because we were
light
a
of
working
day.
band. We had to make a living, because that's what we did. Even when we moved to LA, we would, because you can only play once a month in LA, because they didn't want oversaturation, because there's just really a handful of clubs, and they're all like down the street from each other. The Whiskey, the Roxy, the Troubadour, you can throw a rock and hit the other one. So if we had 3 weeks off, we'd just load up the truck and come to Dallas and Fort Worth and play, make some money, make rent, go back out to LA, and by then the next upcoming show would be in line. But yeah, there were just a number of factors. I don't think living in Dallas, until we moved to LA, I don't think that was a hindrance, because like I said, LA was so saturated. It was some of the timing, and when we moved back to LA in '87, or actually moved there to kind of stay, to relocate, that's when we broke up. That's when Joey left and took Randy with him, and
Do you think the move was responsible for that, or being out there responsible for that, or is it just y'all just frustrated because nothing has happened yet?
No, I mean, things were happening. We showcased it to Whiskey just like weeks before. And I didn't even see it coming. It was a total shocker. It was a total blindside. Like, how is this even possible
That
after
was
all we've been
Pal
through?
Joey, right?
Yeah.
It was the band called Pal Joey.
And he did Pal Joey and played for a few months, but it was always Joey from Sweet Savage, because, it was we all had that name recognition. And it just, that didn't work out. And
You guys got another singer and replaced Randy, too.
Well, yeah, we replaced Randy with
Walt
Walt
Woodward.
Woodward. Yeah, and he was great. He was in this
He
band,
just passed away,
American.
didn't he?
He did, yeah, a few years back. And great drummer, though, great guy, really in the groove. I think that summer, while Joey was doing Pal Joey, Lane and I played with Walt. We auditioned some singers, even Randy O from Odin. That's how I got that song, Little Gypsy, in the Decline movie. But we developed, I think, as a three-piece, like as a power trio, really well, because all we did was rehearse a couple nights a week and just really locked in our sound, had time to work on some new songs, because when we were touring so much, the only time we could work up a new song would be like at sound check and then play it that night for the first time, and then by the end of the week, 5 nights later, it either worked or it didn't, we'd keep it in rotation. So it was such a, difficult situation to be in to kind of do, but we were doing everything, we had to pay the crew, we had to pay rent, we had to, make a living doing this stuff. But then Joey came back in what I would call the Mark II version of Sweet Savage, late summer, I think, early fall '87, And from then on, I think that was like we had new songs. We had some that Joey had brought in when he was with Pal Joey, and then some of the songs that I'd been working with Lane and Walt on, and folded that together. But we didn't get a chance to record them. It was showcase, it was tour, it was work and all this stuff. Working by playing, and it was so expensive back then to record. It's such a different world now. I mean, you can have a computer.
Do it in your living room now.
It's just amazing what you can do. But even just like a cheap 8-track, it was, hundreds of dollars, to just record a couple songs. And that was big money then, Everything was on such a tight margin. And we didn't want to sign with like an investor or anything like that. So we had 100% of everything. We had full ownership because we built it, from scratch. And we weren't going to give, pieces of it away. But again, hindsight, yeah, definitely. And even at the time, I was saying, come on, we got to record. Let's do something, 4-track, anything to get these songs because, you really hone in the songs. You really know your parts. They just, I think, come to a different level of completion or maturity when you get in the studio and break it all down and put it together.
Yeah, the archives came out, and you have a lot of the older songs on there, live versions of them, or maybe demo versions of them, but nothing the real good recordings like you had on the first 5 songs.
No, well, we did get in the studio later. I think it was '88. There was another company. This was called Voss Records. They had the Bus Boys, which was they were like in an Eddie Murphy movie or something, right?
They opened up for him on the Delirious
show.
Yeah.
Funny, great guys, and we hung around this.
48 Hours? They were on 48 Hours?
Yeah.
The movie?
So that was something that they had. And it seemed kind of weird that they would have the Bus Boys and then Sweet Savage. And we didn't sign with them, but we did we were going to do a demo tape with them. Funny story. So because of the Bus Boys and Eddie Murphy, I don't know who knew who, but maybe it was Voss, the guy that owned Voss Records, said, okay, we're going to record at Ponderosa Studios, and this is Tito Jackson's home studio. So, okay, we're like, I figured, the connection with Bus. Okay, everyone knows each other, great. It's a place to record. They were paying for it. We only had one day, and we went in there. So we're driving around Encino, this was before GPS or anything like that. We had no idea. We're driving around looking for this place, can't find it. All the houses look the same. And finally, just asked somebody in the street, he said, where the Jackson's house is? And he goes, oh, yeah, just go down there and turn right, third one on the left there. And I'm like, okay. So we go down there, hit the buzzer on the thing, and who are you? And it's like, it's Sweet Savage, we're here. Like you're expecting us. Okay, hold on. Guy comes out with a gun, goes hanging on the side. Someone else comes to the other side, so we were kind of pinned in. And who are you? Who sent you here? What are you doing here? You can't be here. And I'm like, with Voss Records, we're Sweet Savage. Come on, don't you know us? We're here. Who sent you? All this stuff. It's like, well, we're going to record at Ponderosa Studios. And we're here. We're late. Come on, we're musicians. We're already late already. And he goes, oh, that's Tito. This is Michael's house. But they weren't that nice, though. It was actually pretty mean. They were like, you got to turn around. You got to get the hell out of here right now, or, we're calling the cops. I'm not even going to call the cops. It'd probably be better if they did, because, they were private security anyway. So we were like, holy shit. Yeah. And it was like, I never thought I'd have to leave there, running for my life from Michael Jackson. Give me a tissue. Yeah. So finally, and they were actually kind enough to give us directions to the actual Jackson brother, and this would have been right after their Jackson 5 reunion tour or something.
Oh, nice.
So we get there, and Tito's all cool, and he had all his guitars that were all the light up.
No security around his house. Huh?
Yeah. Oh no. I think his wife was the security. And funny thing is, as soon as we get there, he's like, "Can I bum a smoke?" And I'm like, okay, you can't afford your own cigarettes. Okay, great. So we're out there smoking cigarettes, and he goes, oh shit, it's my wife. And he puts a cigarette out. Oh, how you doing, honey? And apparently he had this poster where it was like, how many, the workplace, days without an accident. And he was like, crossing off days without a cigarette. So he goes, I don't want my wife to find out. So he bummed cigarettes on us all day. But we got in the studio, and we actually got to record a couple of these songs. One of them was
for a movie,
going to be for a movie, yeah. It was Critters 2. I guess I didn't see Critters 1, but kind of, B-horror movie. But why not? The soundtracks were that was the way a lot of bands in the 80s could get their name out there, get on a production, get people to hear what the band's about. And it was written by somebody else, but we really made it our own. And But we recorded, I think, 4 songs total. It was that one, and it was like Desert Rose, She's Got It, Summer Song, and This Night Is Calling. But The Night Is Calling, we actually went in and did the
That's a great
overdubs. We did
song.
the second guitar, put a lead on it. But the other 3 were basically recorded live in the studio. So you can hear the click, 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 you know.
Those are
the-
on archives, right?
Yeah, those are on that. And it was Lane, me, and Walt, and we had headphones on, and we did them live, 3Ps. 1 pass, so no rhythm guitar, no pedals, and nothing. I thought it was just a scratch track, you know, that we're gonna go back and really work on this stuff. Well, we went back and worked on that one song, never finished the other one, so we sort of got to record, but again, did not do the songs justice. So I still have these songs, you know, I think they're just waiting for me, I guess, to pull them out and make them new again, because they never really saw the light of day. Even though we played them out live a lot, they were never really recorded, and I don't have a definitive recording that I can share with somebody and say, yeah, here's a song that we used to do. So there's a future maybe for
So that's
unfinished
that was
business.
88. When did y'all finally put the nail in the coffin for that version of Sweet Savage?
Yeah, it was either late 88 or early 89. It was just a blur for me, and it was really the worst time of my life. Honestly, and I mean, when I broke my back in a plane crash, we can get to that, that was a bad day. That was, and I've been in a wheelchair for 31 years, and that's hard to deal with on a number of levels and things. It's also something that's just, you know, part of my life, you know, who cares? But for the longest time, and maybe to this day, I don't know, I would still always put like Sweet Savage breaking up as at least as bad, if not worse, than paralysis and 30 years in a wheelchair. I mean, that's how much that meant, because that was my life.
I
you
know,
And
it
plus,
was-
I can still play. I mean, I can, you know.
Yeah, I know.
It's
Yeah.
not
I
something
need
that you
wheels
just
to get
done-
around, but it wasn't my dream
They've done a
to
couple
walk.
reunions since then, so-called reunions. One of them was a full-blown reunion at Lakewood Theater,
Yeah.
and a partial reunion at Lakewood Bar and Grill. And my son Taylor and Wayne Stokely sat in and with him and Joey, and they did Sweet Savage songs. That was very, very cool. And
How come Wayne gets all the cool gigs?
yeah,
He's everywhere.
Yeah, he is. isn't he?
yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that I hated that too, because like I said, I considered y'all can't miss.
Yeah.
I mean, I was expecting MTV videos, and I couldn't believe it. I was just like, what the hell happened? Because back then there was no internet. You didn't have gossip on Facebook. You just all of a sudden heard y'all were done, and we're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah.
you know,
It's
yeah.
one of those mysteries. We'll just have to go, you know,
Right.
like the one that got
So-
away.
So what made you want to all of a sudden, from doing that, to get a pilot's license?
Well, it was kind of getting away from it all. Like, I was so devastated from the demise of Sweet Savage, because it wasn't just like, I couldn't just get in another band. I think I auditioned for Lizzie Borden and a couple other people, but my heart wasn't in it, because this was a band, and actually Eric Singer pointed this out to me years and years later. I was at John Corabi's house for some party, and we're in the kitchen chit-chatting, and we had played with Badlands once, and, you know, I'd known Eric, so we'd run into each other and everything, and we're just talking, and he goes, and I said, yeah, I think he'd just gotten in Kiss then, after being in Alice Cooper, and I said, wow, that's cool, you know, playing with Kiss, how awesome's that? And he goes, well, yeah, it's great, but I never had what you guys had. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, Sweet Savage, okay, first of all, you're brothers, and think of like Van Halen, AC/DC, even Stone
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Temple
what I was
Pilots.
just gonna say, yeah.
You either went to high school together, or you were brothers, or a couple of guys who were brothers of these big, big bands that, you know, Aerosmith, they knew each other in high school,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that it goes back. So you're learning how to play music while you're going to concerts, while you're in that adolescent, I'm a boy and I'm a man, you know, speaking of Cooper. You know, you're getting out of the house for the first time, you're getting fucked up for the first time, you're getting laid, you're doing all these firsts in life that happen between, you know, like driving between 16 and 22 or whatever. You know, there's this huge, it's a big rite of, you know, passage, especially for guys and playing music. So you're playing adolescent rock anyway, or adolescent music, you know, it's for, you know, fist in the air, you know, arena rock, which is what we were doing, but we were going to the shows, we were learning how to play, we were playing our own shows, and writing songs in that. It didn't happen years later from some already established band. We were making this stuff, and I think that you had a good point about that there is something about having that time of your life be.
Well, also, he's more of a hired gun. He never had that camaraderie, I think is what he's talking about. He
Yeah.
never had that band grown from the roots up. He was always, hey, there's Eric Singer, you're in our band now. And he would just join this band, then he would join that band, then he would join that band, then he replaced Peter Criss. You know, so he never had what y'all had with like you said.
It was from conception till the
Yeah.
demise, you know?
Yeah.
Of course you're gonna be devastated. Those are your brothers.
Being a hired gun's awesome, because you
Yeah.
get all the big shows, but you don't ever get that
They're
credit
two
for, you don't get
different
credit, you don't get
yeah.
credit for anything that happened, or the writing, I mean, you're just there.
Well, we helped make it. We all
Yeah,
made it from scratch,
exactly.
you know? Built it from the ground up, you know, between the songs, even the Marshalls. Half the Marshalls were fake. I mean, they were real. It was a real wooden box, but there weren't any speakers in it. And, you know, but we made them and put them up, and it was like stage
You even had
props.
lights on in them. Ooh.
Oh, yeah, we did. Went to
Looked
Radio
like they
Shack
were-
and put in a little toggle switch, and the crew would come out and click, 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 you know? And turn them all on. People were waiting for the band to come on. It's like, shit, they're going to turn all those Marshalls on.
Right?
That was the best part about y'all. If nobody had ever seen y'all, nobody knew what y'all looked like till the song started. It wasn't no walking around in the crowd,
Yeah.
no check, check, check.
Nope.
Everything was already
You had the
set.
crew do it.
Then the intro would start, which was a UFO song, which was cool. And then they would come walking out. That would be the first time anybody had seen them. That it was the first time. And it was like so professional. That was at a club, you know. So it
Yeah,
was,
even at Matley's, we made sure.
I still miss that when bands hide, and I like when bands hide and you don't come out. You don't even know who they are until they come out.
Well, Van Halen used to do something funny when they were in the clubs. They would they'd put their hair up in a hat, and they'd put like overalls on, like coveralls, like mechanics things. And they'd come out there and check all their instruments and everything, and then go backstage and pull the stuff off, and then come on, you know, because I mean, you couldn't afford it. But we had a road crew. We
That's
had
what
full-
Lars Ulrich used to do during like the Master of Puppets tour. He used to put his hair in a hat, and he used to put on like a jacket and sunglasses, like nobody was gonna see him back there banging on the drums. So he used to do that too.
Well, it's part of the rock and roll thing.
Right.
It's the mystique. It's the masquerade. It's the, you know, that kind of, you're so close to it, but it's also kind of untouchable. You know, that it's a mysterious thing, but it's part of the, you know, the tease, I guess, the strip tease that a stripper would do. But it's you know, with the music, you know, we always made sure we were accessible, but before the first set, we were nowhere to be found. And we'd even show up together as a band. Even if that meant in the back, in the parking lot, even if there wasn't a grand entrance, we'd just show up together as a band, wait for the last guy to show up, and then we'd come in the back door, maybe 2 people saw us, but it was like a gang, you know, this enforced, like a team, that was such an important part
that's awesome.
about what we did.
Speaking of striptease, though, y'all, they would come out of their last song with
There was
nothing,
actual
with
strip.
nothing but a G-string on.
What?
Or a thong, or whatever, I don't know what you want to call it.
Every
But
year-
they would come out with their guitars are hanging down. You couldn't even touch them. Are they naked?
Yeah, no,
Everybody's like, are they naked? What the hell? And, you know, then they move, and you can see they just had like little women's underwear on. But it was, they all 4 would wear that on the last song. Everybody's like, what the fuck?
That's awesome.
They had a lot of balls, man, trust me.
We had to just keep on being more outrageous. If it was, you know, the hair bigger, or, you know, the clothes are more radical. And it was just to see what we could get away with. But that was that time of excess, you know, in the 80s. It was like you couldn't do there was no such thing as too much.
Yep.
You
So
know,
who's,
there's just more. What else can we do?
Whose hair was bigger? Was it Sweet Savage or Ron Keel?
Sweet Savage.
Yeah.
Lane had the hair. I think Lane had the biggest hair of everybody. Because he had some curls to it, too, that it
Or
moved
Brittany
out.
Fox? Did you guys have hair bigger than Brittany Fox?
Yep.
No, but we spent less on it than they did.
I think the only band that had more hair than Sweet Savage was Brunette. And that was the only-
they were.
They had 18 feet, I think.
Or I remember
total
Jim
or something.
Gillette at one point had this
Yeah, he had-
huge
Yeah, that was just for the album cover.
Yeah.
Whenever they
The
played
bass
live,
player
it was
from
just-
Madam X.
Oh, yeah.
Chris,
Chris,
he had,
Chris.
he had some huge hair. Actually, that's where we learned how to spike the hair up. It was at a club called the Alrosa Villa in Columbus, Ohio. Probably know about it. Notorious, infamous,
That's where Dimebag was
tragic.
killed.
Yeah. Just, oh, man. I mean, he could have been killed in any way, at any club, at any time, and it would have been equally devastating, equally tragic. Such a huge loss to the music industry. I can talk all night about Daryl because
Yeah, he used to come to all your shows.
He was a big part of that era for me. But the fact that it was the Alrosa Villa, that's where we would go. I'd go on Joey's expired driver's license. That was my fake ID. So I would go up and see Joey or Lane play at the Alrosa Villa on a school night, drive back an hour and a half to Athens, Ohio, get home at 2:30, and I'm up at 7 to go to school. Because that's what I did. That's what I wanted to do. You know, that was the That was the
Yeah,
thing.
it's a pretty famous club. It's torn down now. It's a shame.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know what I thought was going to happen at that place? Remember Carrie, the movie at the end of it, where the house just kind of shriveled up and just got sucked into the earth?
Yep.
I thought that was going to happen to the Alrosa because it kind of needed it. But a notorious place. But yeah, Madam X was playing there. I saw a lot of bands, before Sweet Savage, playing at the Alrosa, and it was either Maxine or Roxy from Madam X, and it had they were Black Lace, but then they changed them to Madam X, and yeah, now Roxy's and Vixen, and they just had their hair all up. And it's like, I waited around afterward and I asked one of the girls, I said, how do you guys do that? She goes, oh, come here, grab me, pull my hair down, and you do this kind of circular motion, and I think my hair's too long for that. But she just did this. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And it's like, stop, and pull back. And then it was like, I went in the bathroom and it was no hairspray, no nothing. So when people say, oh, you guys must use a little Aquanet, it's like, kind of no. We cheated the Aquanet. We actually had a better method thanks to the girls in Madam.
Don't mind the bald spot from rubbing my head for 20 years,
know,
but hey.
Right? Go easy on me.
Anyway, pilot license.
Pilot's like, oh yeah, we're getting to that. I guess I'm trying to avoid that one. So yeah, no, I was completely beside. I didn't know what to do, And like I said, I couldn't really go on to somebody else's band because I had spent 10 years, at least, with those guys, either playing or doing something, and I really didn't know anything else. That was like the only band to speak of I had been in. I dabbled in a couple cover bands or something beforehand, but it was really all I had done. And it's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to be in any other band, so I think I just wanted to get away from it all. And this girl, Anna Cartwright, who did a lot of our clothes, she also did some, Bon Jovi, Lita Ford. She did Brunette. She did all their clothes. Great designer. She had a friend who was a screenwriter, and he was working in Hollywood. And the idea of then being a solo person, like, you could sit there with a typewriter, and I had a couple writing skills, and type a screenplay and sell it, and make money. There was something appealing about that because it wasn't dependent on, yes, it's still a movie industry, but it wasn't, all the personality of the club or somebody's going to break up, it's just kind of you and a typewriter. Right? So there was something about that, and that I started working with him on some things, and he had his office by the Santa Monica airport, and I'd go there on my lunch break to look at planes. Now, growing up, my father, Lane's and my father, was a pilot. He was a flight instructor. It was more of a side gig. He was a university professor. But I knew little planes and small airports, and that was a thing. And I always just had it in the back, like, that'd be fun to do someday. And I took whatever savings I had, sold my guitar equipment, and I just put everything. I just stayed at the airport. I worked at the airport, and I worked. As I was working, I was paying for my flying lessons, and it was just something. It was something I wanted to accomplish, not really something I wanted to do, like be a pilot. But I just got away from it all, and there was something refreshing about taking off from Santa Monica, and there's this thin layer of smog when you get about to 800 or 900 feet, and then you're just above it, and then nothing matters. The Strip, all the stuff, all the past, all the pain, all the thing. It's just you're alone, but you're really not alone. There's something just it's a really I guess people talk about that being out at sea or something. Something about being in the air, and it was it took a lot of skill, and you have to kind of have your wits about you.
How long did it take to get your license? How long does that take for somebody?
Yeah,
well, it depends on how often you can go.
You have to have a certain amount of hours,
stuff
right?
like that, yeah. And you want to kind of condense it, because if you just take a lesson here and then a couple weeks later take another one, really it's a building on. So it was maybe about 4 months, but I had the time and the money that I could dedicate towards it. But I had no designs on being a pilot for this or that. As a matter of fact, by the time I crashed, I was really kind of looking for the next thing, it was such a obviously life-changing thing in so many ways, but in another way, didn't change a darn thing. I'm still me. I play. And it didn't really affect some of these things are really important to me.
So May 26, 1991. Tell us what happened, and go through the whole thing if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. I was flying with kind of the bad.
Whose plane was it?
It was a builder. He built this plane called a Long Easy, and Burt Rutan, the designer, he had made some world record. He has planes hanging in the Smithsonian, this guy. But this design, home-built design, high performance. He used a small engine like you would put in a Cessna, but the way the aerodynamics were on the plane, it was really fun to fly, very fast, just like a sport plane. It's the difference between driving like a Tercel in a Corvette or something. You know, it's still a car, but wow, this one handles really cool, and you know, it's much more fun to fly. And I was involved at an air show. I got asked if I wanted to participate in this air show, and basically it was a ribbon cutting contest. And what that is they take a streamer from another plane, and you're flying kind of behind them, and they throw this streamer out, and as the streamer comes down, it's weighted on one end, so it unfurls and just kind of comes down, and you make passes at it and cut it with your wing, and you come back and cut it again until you get to a certain point. That's the hard deck, 1,000 feet, and that, you know, you're done, you stop at that point, and everybody obviously goes one at a time. My turn, made the first cut, you know, got lost, oh, there it is, came in for the second. That ribbon, the actual thing that I was cutting, was a roll of toilet paper. So I risked my life, almost died
For some toilet paper.
over a roll. You know, guys do stupid stuff. Anyway, so that's what, but you're determined and single foot. I had to get that thing. And the third cut, I was really low, and it was up there, and I just full throttle, hold back on the stick, and went up and finally got it, but I didn't want to stall the plane, like stall the wing, so I pushed the nose over, and nothing happened. And the way this plane is, John Denver was killed in the same kind of plane years later, after I crashed. Not inherently dangerous, but you put a 16-year-old in a Corvette, and you're going to have problems. And I was a relatively young pilot in a sport plane at an air show, so go figure. But everything got really quiet. I'm moving the stick, and nothing's happening. I don't know if you ever hit a patch of snow. It's kind of soft and quiet, and it's like you don't hear the road noise, and it's kind of cool in a way, but it's also unsettling because you're doing this with the steering wheel, and nothing's happening. And that was the same thing with me. And I'm looking at, I could see the control surfaces moving, you know, the engine's going. I even broke this finger in the crash because I think I just had my throttle to the fire while trying to power out of this thing, and I wasn't able to. And basically, the plane just kind of fell down, kind of it's called a mush. It kind of mushed in and hit the ground.
So it wasn't like a nosedive, it was
Yeah, it
just
didn't roll up in a
straight
ball,
down.
didn't catch on fire, didn't any of that stuff.
You knew you were going to crash?
I did. I knew I was going to crash enough to call a Mayday on the radio, and that's one of the things they tell you in, you know, flight training. You have to say Mayday 3 times and announce your position. I was at an airfield, so they knew. They were, you know, there was probably 100 people looking at me, so I didn't have to tell them where I was. Everyone was watching. But yeah, it was almost like an out-of-body experience, like, you know, saying Mayday, 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 and it's like, did I just say that? What? You know? And then someone else came on the radio. I think it was one of the other pilots. Said, you know, what's your problem? What's happening? What's your situation? And I just, for some reason, I blurted out that Top Gun line that Mav did when he was in a spin with Goose. I said, "This is not good." And that could have been the last thing I said on Earth in this lifetime. But then things got really, really weird. I had this profound spiritual experience in the plane.
I was going to ask you about that because I saw that today. I saw your documentary today. I was going to ask you about that. Please talk about that. That's profound.
As painful, I mean literally painful, like body pain as the crash was, and you know, the recovery and the surgeries and the wheelchair and all this stuff, is as frustrating and hard as that was. This experience that I had, I've told people that I wouldn't trade it because of this other thing that I got. And, you know, I'm alone in the plane, and I feel a presence, but it unfolded very quickly. But, you know, when you're in a crisis mode, you know, time has a tendency to expand.
Yep.
You hear about things happening in slow motion when the car's spinning around or something. And I was certainly in that intense mode. And everything got kind of cloudy in the cockpit, and it was like, you know, I couldn't see the instrument panel anymore, and then it parted, and I was like in outer space, and it's like I could see the entire universe, like all at once, and I was always a hobbyist astronomer as a kid, you know, I love things like that, so it kind of fit my sensibilities. It was very sci-fi, you know, very cosmic, you know, it wasn't, you know, fairies or angels or, you know, religious symbolism or anything. It was just this, you know, science, and I'm like, wow. And I thought, wow, this is it. I'm getting a glimpse of the world beyond, or the afterlife, or Valhalla, you know, wherever you go. But I didn't see a tunnel. There was no, like, you know, tunnel or anything. It was actually the opposite. It was the opposite of a tunnel. I had like full 360 vision. I was hyper aware. my life didn't flash before me. It was like all of life, everybody's life.
Right.
Past and future was all happening at once, and it was just, it was overwhelming. I certainly forgot about the predicament I was in, you know, because I was so enamored and so taken in by this visual. And then I heard a voice, and it said, "Do you want to live or die?" And I heard it clearly. It didn't like sound like it was coming through the headphones, because these little planes are kind of loud. But I swear I was not too interested in the question. I was more interested in, like, you know, what's this voice? Where's it coming from? How could I be hearing this? And I look in the back seat. There's nobody there. I know there isn't. I wouldn't have heard them anyway unless they were coming over the intercom. And then it asked again, but like, hey, you know,
Hey,
do
you wanna
wanna live
answer?
or die? Like, first of all, I didn't think I was going to live. Once I called a Mayday, that's usually the last thing you do. I had tried everything.
So all
tried
this
A,
is
tried
happening
B.
how long does that fall take? Like,
I was going to ask.
Well, there were some engineers, aeronautical engineers on the ground watching, because a lot of them were home builders themselves. So they were, you know, out there doing calculations. One said it took about 22 seconds. Was, you know, I was in the, you know, the full stall.
but in your mind, it seems like it's taking minutes.
Oh, it's 20 minutes, yeah. It seemed like.
That's
but
crazy.
I actually paced it back, and I've gone through it. So if, you know how if you have like loaded imagery, you could say, you know, third birthday and, you know, graduating from high school, and, you know, 100 things come up to mind, but in a very encapsulated verse. So these things were happening quickly, but I was just taking in, like I said, this hyper awareness, taking this all in. And then I finally goes, okay, I'll live. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know I had a choice. First of all, I didn't think it would be real, and then having a choice. And
Did you say it out loud, or?
I may have, you know, not over the radio, but I just, you know, it just made sense. And honestly, what I thought about it, I didn't really have any deep feelings about reincarnation, but I felt like in case that was a thing, just in case, that I could live longer in this life and, you know, move my soul that much further along, so I wouldn't have to come back and pick up where I left off. Maybe I could do my future self a little bit of a favor. I knew it was going to be hard. I had that sense that it wasn't going to just completely walk out of this thing. But I felt this presence, this, you know, this voice. And once I chose, I knew I was going to live the whole rest of the way down. I knew I was going to be, like, I knew I was going to be okay. Like, my sense of who I am and that is certainly the case. You know, I've been able to express myself in so many ways. You know, I don't skateboard or do some other things, obviously, but, you know, people don't do that at age 60 anyway. I mean, I guess you can, but, you know, so I'm not really too worried about the things I can't do. But it was just an incredible experience, and it's had a profound effect on my life that I lived for a reason. And it wasn't just to, you know, hang out or do nothing. Like,
Then as soon as you answered, did it?
That's what I was going to ask.
It was, yeah, everything kind of cleared up. I could see the horizon, and it was coming out. It was like in a 3, 2, 1.
And you stayed awake the whole time?
Oh, yeah, even impact, and I heard the plane hit. You know, I saw the dust settle. If I blanked out, it had to have been for a second or a fraction of a second, because it was just, and I knew I broke my back right away. My legs just couldn't move, and it hurt really bad right there.
But you noticed your arms were moving? Or?
Yeah, everything was fine. There was no blood.
So that moment of
It didn't even chip a
impact,
tooth. It was weird.
that moment of impact, what would you equate that to? Like, just the sheer force of it?
Actually, I had something to relate it to. I played ice hockey as a kid, and you know, through high school and everything. I remember one time I was pretty young, and I got hit in the head with a puck, and it knocked me flat on the ice. And it was, you ever get the wind knocked out of you? I mean, where you're just like, for a second, you're just like, you can't really breathe in, you can't really exhale. And for a split second, you wonder, like, is this breathing thing going to start up again sometime soon? Is
I
it?
hate that feeling.
And I remember laying on the ice going like,
Yeah.
couldn't talk, couldn't breathe in, couldn't breathe out. It's like, is this going to, are we going to breathe again? It was the exact same feeling.
Wow.
So I had an experience in my life, you know, previous to relate it to, because then, you know, on the ice, I did start breathing again, but it was like times 100 though. It was the same feeling, but like
I can imagine.
maximized.
But no fire or nothing? Just,
No fire, no
just
fire.
boom.
Yeah,
And then they were on
yeah.
you and pulled you out? And
Well, actually, some guys came up in a pickup truck first before, like, and there was an ambulance at the airport.
hold my
They
beer!
always have safety
Look,
crews.
hold my beer!
Well, I actually told the guy comes over, see, one of the things you're supposed to do when you crash, I guess I only have one crash, so I don't have a lot of experience, but I called Mayday, you're supposed to do that, but you're also supposed to shut off the fuel valve, and you're also supposed to crack the canopy open like in a car or something, if you get crushed or the door mechanism, you're not sealed shut. The door might fly open or something, but at least you're going to be able to get out, And I didn't do that, of course. But I did call him 88. But anyway, so I crashed, and these guys pulled up in the pickup, and the guy ran over and said, "You okay?" And I said, "Do you have any pliers?" He was like, "What? You just crashed a plane. You're asking for pliers." And he had a toolbox in his truck. I figured he did. So he ran a thing, and I said, "Pull the hinge pin out," because this canopy kind of opened sideways. It was like a little fighter thing, and like a little fighter jet. And he pulled the pins, the hinge pins that, and that's how, because the latch was jacked, it wasn't going to open. So he pulled that up, and then it was just like being like hatched or something, because it was really hot in the cockpit, and it was, waiting. And finally, that first, air, and the thing was open, and I knew that these guys could pull me out in case there was a fire or something. But it was, it was a pretty intense experience, and I've talked to people that have crashed in planes before, and they black out. There's gaps where they don't remember things, and sometimes I kind of wished I didn't remember everything. But I'm really glad I do because I don't.
Do you have nightmares about it sometimes, or do you ever think about it when you're sleeping? Or
yeah, well, when I can't sleep, it'll keep me up. I've crashed a plane probably 1,000 times since then. Oh, especially early on, it's like, what would I have done? Should I have done this? Did I do that? Did I turn the ignition master switch on? Did I, where did it kind of fall apart?
Was it anything you did, or is it something that would have happened to anybody at that moment?
Could have happened to anybody in that situation. I probably shouldn't have been that much of a high angle of attack and low speed. Like I said, I tried to put the nose over to get the airflow going.
That toilet paper was yours, though, Dan.
Yeah. Oh no, They call it target fixation. Yeah.
Did you get the toilet paper?
I did. I made the third cut. I did.
There you go.
But
well, let me ask you another question. Just going back, and this is going to be a stupid question, but I need to ask it. So when you heard that voice, right? Did it sound like James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman?
It was like the loudest whisper.
Was it?
It was like.
Morgan Freeman is God.
Yeah,
right?
no, it was like Field of Dreams. Like, if you build it, he will come, like something. It's kind of like that voice. It was creepy, but kind of cool and kind of comforting. But
you're like, what? Huh?
It would have been cool if it would have sounded like Morgan Freeman.
Yeah. Well, it's better than Darth Vader, I guess, coming to me. I am your father. It's like, no.
So after that, you got rushed to the hospital, I'm sure, and you were probably in the hospital how long?
Well, it was about 3 months total.
3 months total.
Well, the first thing they did is, they took me to a local hospital, and of course they take forever to give you pain medication because they don't, in case something's, they want to keep you. I don't know why they don't do it. They should, anyway, they finally did. I was in Utah, and they were going to ship me off to Salt Lake because they had a better trauma center for spinal cord injuries. Actually, one of the better ones, I think, in the West. And so what they did is they drove me back to the same airport where I crashed and put me on another plane to life flight me out there. And it's like, we're getting on the plane. And I was like, I just got out of the plane, by the time the engine started
no rush. I just had a plane crash.
Just rub some dirt on it. You'll be
it's
fine.
like, really? Come on.
And I'm like, well, I can't crash twice in one day. Can you?
God.
Funny. Years later, I ran into Steve Lawler from, I guess it's Live Nation now, but he was at Pace concerts and all that, and he was on the Skinner plane. He was one of the street survivors from the Leonard Skinner plane, and he said, "Hey, what happened to you?" And I said, "Nah, broken back in plane crash." Yeah, I've been in a couple of those. I knew one, but I didn't know about the other. But
so after you heal, or not heal, but after you get out of all that, you decide you want to do comedy.
Comedy, yeah.
How did that come to be with such horrible things happening?
Yeah, well, it
and
was
all
a way
of a sudden,
of owning it,
I want to be a sit-down comic, or as you call it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to be honest with you right away because I'm a little nervous about being here tonight because I don't really do stand-up. Got a little sit-down comedy for you. Really, it's not all that bad being in a wheelchair. It's nothing to be upset about because I get great parking spots. It's really it's a cultural advantage these days, But the thing about it that really irritates me are some of the words and phrases that we use. They just don't seem to make sense anymore. Like my girlfriend was over last night, and she was getting ready to leave, and I told her I'd walk her to her car, and she said, "I'd like to see that." Now, Walkman doesn't work. When he crossed the street, the sign said, "Don't walk." So I didn't. Kept right on going. No, you can't dance either. No, can't dance. Can't do that. I know what you might be thinking. Yeah, you've probably seen people dancing out there in the wheelchair spinning around, but no, I cannot dance. I have 2 left wheels. It just it's really bad.
Well, it was really kind of starting over, and I had moved to Phoenix. There was kind of a bird rising from the ashes of the one before. Little metaphor, it wasn't really planned, but then I went to school, went to ASU. I figured this was a great time to just get a degree, figure out what you want to do. And the next 4 years were kind of planned out because you have your curriculum and your area of study. And there were just opportunities. I joined an improv group. I tried this, kind of just tried everything. I was probably about 10 years older than most other people in my grade track, because they would have gone right out of high school.
This is like 95, 96, somewhere in there?
Well, yeah, 92, 93, and I graduated in 96, so
Okay.
yeah, it was that 4-year span. And and there were some people doing stand-up, like during the lunch hour, and I signed up and tried this, and I got some laughs, and it actually took off. I got some attention, went to New York, and was
I
on
thought it was hilarious. The scenes I
USA.
saw in your movie were funny.
Well, it was just, it just came from life, because that was the way I dealt with it, and sometimes that's an icebreaker. Because I had to learn how to be a person in a wheelchair. I was 6 foot, and then I'm like 4'2" in the chair. And I'm like, even just the height thing was weird. Man, I'm
Tall as
wider.
Dio, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Could have been eye to eye with him. And it just seemed like I was always either making jokes to make me feel more at ease or somebody else more at ease. But it was also the absurdity, like a street corner sign says "Don't walk." It's like, okay, I won't. Someone's like, well, that was funny, and this is funny, and it just kind of came from the things that were really there happening. And of course, the big joke was being a musician, right? A lot of musicians die in plane crashes, and of course, the joke is I wasn't famous enough to die, but I got hurt really bad, so I was kind of famous. I got paralyzed. I was that paraplegic level fame. And
not up there with
not
Buddy
dead.
Holly or Stevie Ray Vaughan, but almost.
No. And and that John Denver died in
Yeah,
the same
John
plane.
Denver.
This was after me, but also it's the 27 Club.
Yeah.
Right. I had my 27th birthday in the hospital. I was like 2 weeks before I turned 27 when I had the crash. So tried the 27 thing, tried the plane crash thing. Man, just can't kill me. So here I am, and it's weird at this time in my life now. I'm pushing 60, and it's like I feel like I'm 22 again or something. Like I have more ahead of me than I do behind me. And we got some stories to talk about and stuff from the past, which is great, but it's also part of my ongoing saga. And I'm ready for the next thing and the new thing, and maybe take some things from the past and make them new again, like you're talking about some of these old songs that, they are old. I mean, that's 35, 36 years, some of these songs, but they're new. It's like you're like an archaeological dig where you discover something and there's a new thing, even though it's old. So.
Right. And did you move back to California after Arizona?
Yeah, I did. I ended up about 97. I moved back to ostensibly do comedy, and it was just so cut. It was even worse than the club scene there. It was just terrible. It was all these comics that
everybody goes there.
Lewd and rude. And they hated each other. And
Did you go to a comedy store? Did you do anything there?
Yeah, I did Comedy Store once. I think that was more of an open mic. But I got some
like
gigs.
on Mondays or something.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
It's like a lottery, right? You have to put your name in, and then they pick you. Yeah.
Now, when did you decide to do the documentary? When was
that was in college.
Okay, so you did that in college.
Yeah, so there was a time, I think 1996, I was making a film, I was doing stand-up comedy, I was, playing rock and roll, I had a full college, study thing to do, and I guess I was at a point where I was telling the story, what happened, what happened next, and I was like, well, geez, if I could just write it down or make a movie, I'll just do a documentary, a personal documentary, and that did it really well. It was a great play at film festivals. I think it's because of the humor. You can take something that's, difficult and it's inspiring.
The flat tire with the smiley face button, stuff like that, a little tongue in cheek.
Yeah,
it's called Walk This Way.
It's on
and it's on YouTube. Greatness. I suggest we might put a link to it at the end of this episode so you can check it out. But you won an award for it.
I did. Well, I won several awards at different film festivals, but one in particular was a Student Academy Award. They have a student category for the Oscars, and it's a little different trophy. It's not really, the gold man's on it, but it's more in a medallion that's on a cube kind of a thing. Yeah, it went straight to the top. I got a lot of attention. I got a lot of people wanting to work with me in Hollywood, but this was at a time when you had to kind of choose what you wanted to do. You either had to be a cameraman, or you had to be a set designer, you had to be a director or a producer. And I was coming from the student film world where you got to do everything, you got to wear every hat, but now it's come full circle, and nowadays you can actually make real films and be kind of a solo student filmmaker, but the equipment's gotten so much better and so much easier to use. But it was such an honor, and I, thank the Academy. I can. It's something that can't be taken away. Yeah, I have an Academy Award.
Yeah, Ed Harris presented it, the great Ed Harris. So that was cool.
Yeah. Oh, he was funny too, because he came up to me beforehand. He goes, "Well, I'm gonna, because he was the MC, I guess, of that night." And a lot of great people have won this student award. Robert Zemeckis, Spike Lee, Parker and Stone from the South Park. Bob Saget, a lot of people have gone on to do really amazing things, and they only hand out like 8 of them each year. It's not like there's 30 of them out there, so it's very select alumni that I'm proud to be part of. But Ed Harris comes up to me beforehand, and he goes, when I introduce you in your film, how do you want me to say this? Is it like walk this way, or is it walk this way, or walk this way? Total actor, And I'm just like, wow, walk this way. And he goes, walk this way. And I go, that's it. A little more feeling, and you've got it. So I'm like, you got
potential,
Ed Harris.
Yeah, you got potential, young man.
Stick with it. He took my advice, and look at him now. So,
that's greatness.
But the thing about this, breaking your back in a plane crash, or telling the story about a plane crash, especially like in a casual setting, I thought it would have been a lot cooler than it is. It's kind of not. Like, this was a few weeks ago at this that Seven Springs we went to, or Six Springs. This guy can, I'm waiting in line to get a Red Bull at the bar, and just want to tell you, man, you're, sitting in the chair, keep going, Matt. That's inspiring. It's really, really inspiring. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for saying. I didn't do anything. I guess I'm inspiring. Okay, fine. And he goes, was this, if you don't mind me asking, and everybody dances around, was it just something you were born with? Or I said, oh, no, I broke my back. It's a spinal cord injury. And he goes, oh, was it an accident? I'm like, well, yeah, I didn't do it on purpose. It all went according to plan.
Throw yourself against the wall.
I go, yes, as a matter of fact, it was an accident. And he's like, oh, so a motorcycle crash or something like that.
He just kept fishing, huh?
And I go, no, it was a car wreck. And I go, no, actually, it was an airplane. Wait,
and you're alive?
Wait, you were in a plane crash and you're alive. Oh, okay. Well, and then they always want to know this: was it a big plane or a small plane?
Does it matter?
Well, I think it matters because every one of us gets on a big plane and goes somewhere, but not very many of us getting little planes.
Nobody wants to get on a small plane because they crash.
Exactly, and if they do crash, usually you don't come out of it. Also, the bigger the plane, the bigger the lawsuit, I think.
Yeah, right.
I was a pilot, I crashed. I'm surprised I didn't get sued by the aircraft owner because I totally destroyed his airplane. So, so I'm like, well, no, yeah, I was an airplane. He goes, big plane or small plane? So, well, it was a small plane. He goes, oh, a little plane? It's like, wow. Well, you're lucky then. Like, it all went from like this sympathy, inspiration story to like, oh, wow, you're quite the lucky young man there. How'd this happen? And he goes, well, what, if you don't ask me, was it a pilot, a weather thing? What's going on? I always want these questions. And I'm like,
it's toilet paper,
man. I said, well, yeah, right. I said, well, actually, I was the pilot. And he's like, wait, you were flying a small plane? What were you thinking? And then he turned on me. And I said, well, what were you even doing in a small plane? Like, he's practically yelling at me. I'm like, well, I was, flying at an air show. An air show in a little plane? Oh, like it was like he was through with me. It was like, if I would have said I slipped out of the banana peel.
That was the guy that booed you when you got to play guitar that night.
Or
booed.
Man, they go from sympathy to just spite and disgust.
I think he left. He was mad.
Idiot,
he left.
Oh man, I ruined the whole thing. I have to come up with a better story. Just something short and sweet,
Spiders and Snakes, another pretty good-sized band in California. It used to be London.
London,
Everybody
yes.
knows London. They were in the Decline of the Western Civilization movie and played all over the country for years. They were the breeding ground for Blackie Lawless, Nikki Sixx, Fred Corey.
Ariel Bender.
A bunch of them.
From Montehoople, right?
Yep.
Geez, who else? Oh, Izzy Stradlin, I think, was in the band.
Lizzie Gray was the founder, and
And Nikki Sixx and Lizzie were in the band pre-Motley Crue. They wrote, what was it? Public Enemy #1.
Yep,
That's a Lizzie song.
Right.
Well, I knew Timmy, the drummer. I'd known him, from back in the old Strip days. And I think we had played with London. Nader was the singer then. It was, around
Nader
that
DePriest.
time. Nader DePriest, yeah. Who actually has the name London now. He continued on with the band, but Lizzie kind of took his own thing and went a little more 70s pop with the Spiders and Snakes.
Spiders and Snakes.
And and I got involved, I guess it was 2011, 2012 or something like that, and played with them for several years. And I just like I said, it's a breeding ground for all this stuff. I'm thinking like, well, gosh, all these other guys played with Lizzie. Now I'm playing with Lizzie, like I'm next, it's going to be, this will be my launch pad to get out there. But he developed Parkinson's, and that's one of the reasons why I was brought in.
He just passed away too, didn't he?
He did, about 3 years ago, yeah. He was having trouble playing the guitar parts, but he could still sing. So I played the guitar parts, and we'd go in the studio, and he would kind of like hum, do a na 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 na, and then oh yeah, that's it. So it was kind of his hands playing guitar, and of course, playing gigs and everything. And we just kept going. We just, it got to be where he could only do maybe 3 songs, and we'd have someone like Betsy Bitch, be there with us, to back him up or to, take over. She learned the songs and able to, and he basically played till he died. Yeah, but it was really cool to be. He's a great songwriter, really sweet guy.
It was a shame he never got the break he deserved.
I know.
He was like a main guy in L.A. that just never got. Everybody got it but him.
Yeah, and he helped get them there.
Yeah,
So he's definitely an unsung hero. Actually, Nikki Sixx reached out to me when I tweeted something about him, a picture of him. This is when he was ailing, and Nikki, I guess, found it or something and DM'd me and got in touch with Lizzie, and then they were able to hook up. And I don't think they had like a bad past. I think they just kind of went their own ways and just lost touch with each other. But they were able to hang out and spend some quality time with their kids and things like that.
and then you moved back to the area.
Moved back to the area, yeah. It was, things just fell apart with COVID, especially in LA. It got harder and harder to do just the most simple things. Even before then, the Strip was kind of a shadow of its former self. You could still play, and we would still play the Whiskey. We had some bands play with us that would sell the tickets, so we didn't really have to do that, but it was kind of on a favor on a Sunday. And, with like Kim Fowley, who started the Runaways and, managed a bunch of people, he came to, I got maybe one of the last shows he saw before he passed. He came out and saw us at the Whiskey. So, Lizzie definitely had a lot of name and a lot of respect, from people in the industry. And actually, the last thing Kim Fowley said to me, he goes, "Be teenage." And I'm like, oh, like a state of mind. Like, don't lose that. Like what Eric Singer was talking about, don't lose that. I just got my driver's license. I'm, gonna cruise for girls. I'm gonna get my guys together. We're gonna jam, in the garage. Like that spirit of, forever 16, is and he was ancient at the time when he said it, but he still had that teenage vibe.
It's hard to capture nowadays, with all these bands coming out, new bands, and even the existing bands. That's hard to capture, But that's good advice. I mean, it's really good advice.
Yeah. I'm glad to remind myself of that. I need to write that down or maybe tattoo it or something. But yeah, it just got harder and harder, and it just kind of opened up. I've been in touch with Joey. Joey stayed here after he moved back from LA. He stayed here that whole time, 30 years, and huge player, huge. I guess everybody here
Everybody knows
that,
Joey. Yep.
But kind of a hinge-pin or a kingpin of the local scene. The one everyone knows. And he showed up and played with a bunch of bands, and gave a lot of people their start and everything. I had been absent that time. I came back every now and then. I'd come visit. We did, like I said, these reunion shows or things that we did with Taylor and Wayne, and it just I don't know. It just sort of opened up, and it happened very, very quickly. But it happened also at the same time like to the day that Joey went back in the hospital when he had his relapse with the cancer. That was, I think, the same day that we got here to kind of scout it out, look for a place to live, and see if this move is really going to happen. And I don't feel like I'm coming back to Dallas because there's no back. You know what Heraclitus say? You can't step into the same river twice. You've changed. The water has moved.
Yeah.
I think I'm coming forward to Dallas, not back to Dallas.
And you're in a different part of town.
Forward
and everything, yeah.
Of course, it's great because I can see you guys and everything, and be, anyone who was there then or remembers, it's great to be part of it now. And there's really something happening here, though. There's a vibe happening, and you can say, oh, the local scene's dead, but I think it's more happening here than it is a lot of other places. Definitely better than LA and Columbus.
And the grass
Ohio.
is not always greener. Everybody complains about here until they go somewhere else. And
No, it's like on the verge. It's on the cusp. I think. Well, there's some. I can get into this if you want. There's I think a few elements that have to be present to have a robust music scene, and Dallas had one. I mean, it was. You had the, what was it, Mother Blues, and, Bugs Henderson, you had, these local, people. What you need is like a dive bar, like the Cheers bar, that everyone goes to. I don't know if that's O'Reilly's now. It was certainly Matley's back then, or Savvy's in Fort Worth, Arlington area. And you have to have a record store. Maybe that's Josie, I don't know. And you have to have like a music store where there's some guy that knows everything about the guitars, and so that, oh, what's this? And you can talk gear, because, guitar players and, stuff are gearheads.
That's changed, though, like with all this, everything will be online now.
Yeah, I know.
That's the hard part,
It is, it is.
Online, but it makes total sense. And, we had this same conversation with Wayne and George and everybody, and, they say the same thing.
You also have to have a local, like, news rag. There was Buddy Magazine here forever.
The Observer's still around.
then there was Harder Beat.
Harder Beat.
Yeah, and a radio station. I know Greg Spicoli's
Jam.
got his local
KON.
The Freak.
emphasis. Yeah, the Freak, 97.1. Freak out! But I think those elements are in play. I think it's just it's a couple turns of the screw, and also probably a very directed effort to try to make this happen. Hopefully it can be part of that.
Well, nobody wants to sell tickets, Chris.
Yeah, well, and then there's the tribute band, and that's such a double-edged sword. It's great. These bands are great. They do these songs justice. You can go to a club and you're guaranteed to hear good songs of a band that you like, and it's awesome. And the bands get paid. People show up. People pay. And the crowds are into it because they know all the songs. You got another thing, there's so much really good about it. The other side of the sword is that you're not writing new songs. You're not playing original bands. You're keeping something old alive, which is important. It's heritage and preservation and archival. You have to keep things.
But a lot of those guys do have original projects too, in their defense.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and it's a tribute band is the kind of, because you learn the songs and,
Right.
and then you know them. You have time to do that and work on other things. But I think it sets up almost an incentive for maybe younger bands that are like, well, geez, let's do an all original thing and be unique. And it's like, oh, we can't get paid, we can't get a gig. Okay, let's do a tribute band. And then they get rewarded for it. And I just don't want to steer anybody off track from doing that.
And see, the younger bands, though, nowadays, they don't want to do the work like you guys did when you first started. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, let's put this out. We can do our own recording. We're going to give it to somebody. Let's get a gig, but we need to get paid for that gig. And we want an exorbitant amount of money to get. We want the club to promote. We want all this. We don't want to do anything but play the music. It's not like you guys did and all these the old school guys did. They got on the road, man, and they put the flyers up. They promoted
you had to
out of your
self-promote.
pocket,
But you could do it. There was a
Exactly.
record store where you
Exactly.
could put the flyers out. There was a local news rag where you could take out an ad or get a review.
But some of that stuff is still the same in the sense where you could do it through social media. You could do it through they still have record stores, online record stores.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it can be done.
I think
It's
there's a
just-
way.
it's
I think
going
there's
to,
a
of
way.
course.
But bottom line, though, you still got to be a live band and go to a club where there's live people coming in. That part of the equation. The other things can take different forms. Where you
Right.
get your records and where you could read an online news magazine instead of picking up a physical rag. But as far as the body, the human bodies have to be in the band, they have to be on a stage, and then they have to have the people there.
Well, back then
That's
also, right, Chris, used to be able to sell records and make money. Now you can't do that. You have to be on the road constantly. And that's a different
And then it's the
element, too.
T-shirts that you're actually making
And
money
yeah, that's
from,
where you're making the money
merch.
from, the merch, you know?
You know, and some of these other elements that were always involved, there was, a journalist or a photographer that was wanting to be a rock photographer. So the guy in the bands, they want to be a band, they want their band to be famous, they want to be a famous musician. But there'd be a clothing designer that wanted to be everybody was trying to move up the ladder. Everybody was trying to make it, so to speak, or make a career for themselves. So some of these supporting things you not always think about, that's so important.
Well, there's not a shortage of photographers, and we do have some writers like Jeff and Michelle Johnson and stuff, So those elements are still there.
It needs to be sort of like a spokes on a, you need that hub to kind of bring everything together. And maybe
That'll be Godfather TV.
That's it. Maybe this is it. This is another thing. What you're doing right now is so important for the local music scene, because here's people that were there, that can talk about it. You can learn about the past of the Dallas music scene and what's happening now. And like Spicoli's Sunday night show with Big Mix Lee, they're playing, new music from local acts and really focusing on that. Like I think it's all there. Maybe it just needs to coalesce or come together, incubate it. But this is it. I think right now this is the kind of stuff that it takes to make something like that happen.
In your opinion, we're here. So where do we take it in order to make some progress? Because that's where everybody's kicking themselves in the face, is trying to. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, how do you make that fit into the current landscape?
Yep.
Having a club, and it's something I don't want to do, and I know it's a big pain in the ass, but for somebody that maybe knows how to do it, or maybe rents a club, a couple nights a week, a venue, that it becomes like the Cat House in L.A. was always at Osco's or the Probe or some other thing, and it was only one night a week. But you have like a battle of the bands. You have contests, guitar contests, where then you get the music stores involved and the radio promoting it, giveaways, things like that get, then there's skin it. Prizes and competitions, those go a long way. I think it has to be consistent. Like the tribute band thing is really consistent, but like somebody, like back then you could always see Pantera, you could always see Sweet Savage, you could always see Lightning, Rocky and Barney and those guys. There was consistency, and you could, show up and have, know that you're going to go to a club where you're going to see people that you know you're going to see a band that you've seen before, and then you can take it, hey, come on, let's go see Lightning, and the bass player's awesome, and then you've got something to show, something to share. So it maybe needs a central, centerpiece. I don't know what it is. It seems like it's kind of spread out.
Anybody watching, wanting to invest? Actually, a couple of me and my friends talked about this weekend. You know who you are. You know who you are. Let's get this done.
Like he was just talking about Six Springs recently. For those that don't know, Joey C. Jones did pass away this year in March. Late, great Joey C. Jones. Everybody misses him, but we've had a couple of good, I'm going to say benefits, but the first one, he was still alive, and Sweet Savage came in town, 3 of them, to play some old songs, and Joey played with all of his bands, a short set with every one of his bands at Trees, and that was a great night.
Amazing night.
And then they did after he passed away, they did a nice remembrance for him at the Loft. And then recently, a couple weeks ago, Jade Jones, Joey's daughter, had Chris on stage, and they did a lot of Joey's songs. Chris played guitar, and Jade sang. Spicoli sang. A couple other guys got up there. Kenny Size Love. It was fantastic. But, yeah, we lost another great one this year with Joey. And but I just wanted to focus tonight on Chris because he's been a very important part of the Dallas music scene since 38 years now. So what else you got going on in the future? You got anything happening right now that's to look forward to?
Well, like I said, we're talking about these older songs that never got recorded. I'm bringing those out. Trying to get together with a couple guys to get these songs recorded. It could be the beginning of a band situation.
You need a drummer, Chris?
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
I know you have your pick of the litter, you know.
Well, I haven't picked anybody yet, so I haven't even.
I'm pretty damn good.
Scoped it out.
He's in 10 bands. I don't think he has time.
10 band. You know, if you want something done, ask a busy person, right? Isn't that what they say? You know, to make, you know, old things. I don't know what's. I don't know if there's a secret ingredient. I think everything's there. I think if everything just cooked a little bit longer, you know, turn up the heat a little bit, and having more, you know, between all the people that we know, I mean, we could do like a club night, you know, a couple times a month, where it's, you know, Dallas rockers, or, you know, make it like a night where it's all about local music and, you know, original, give young bands a chance to play. The ones that don't want to sell the tickets or can't sell the tickets, you know, it's always got to have the new things. If it's just the old guys playing the old songs, you'll keep it alive, but it has to be vibrant. It has to be about the new thing, the next thing, inspire the next generation. Like Taylor, your son Taylor. I mean, to me, that's the future. That's, or Jade, you know, Joey's daughter.
Are you and her writing some songs, maybe, or is that possible?
We worked up Picture Yourself, which was another one that Sweet Savage never fully recorded or did it justice. And she changed some of the lyrics, made it about her father, or her, you know, connection with her father.
I know we like that version. I know Ramey did.
Yeah, and we even did it acoustically, just kind of jamming around. So yeah, I think we're gonna work on some stuff. I'd like to see her record a couple of her dad's songs. That way she can, you know, have ownership, and they're kind of new again. Plus, it's, you know, the next generation, and then from there, you know, move forward and write new stuff. So, you know, between your show, it just has to be, you know, something maybe at a place, at a club where, you know, maybe like the Cat House, where it's mostly DJ playing music that you know, a tribute band would play, but use it to showcase new bands. Have it be a scene where you can get together and you can go, yeah, and it's early enough in the night. It's not, you know, midnight in Deep Ellum or something.
The 80s were time in a bottle, man.
It's never going to happen
the
again.
Cat House, you had all the women and everything. It just doesn't like that anymore. It's hard to.
But, you know, even
it's a good idea, but somebody can come up with how to do it, you know.
Well, let's work on it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's more than possible,
You have anything
especially
else?
here.
Anything else to plug? Any websites or anything like that? Or Sweet Savage have a website? Or you just
Everything's kind of in shambles right now, but in a way that's a good thing because I'm rebuilding everything. I should have something
a YouTube channel?
Yeah, I do. It's Chris Sheridan, Sweet Savage. If you just Google that, or, you know, in YouTube.
Go look at some old
it should
footage,
come up.
old videos of the band and stuff like that. We'll put the link up for the movie, all that good stuff. We always do a top 5 every episode, and this time we're going to do Van Halen because he wanted to do either Kiss, AC/DC, or Van Halen, and we've already done Kiss and AC/DC, so
the big 3.
We're going to do some VH now, and I'm pretty sure
right.
I'm pretty sure I know how all this is going to go, but I'll let you start it off. Your top 5 Van Halen albums.
Well, let me start with saying Van Halen was such a big influence. Obviously, you know, Eddie influenced every guitar player born since, you know, then. But we would go to the shows, me and Joey and Lane. So that was part of our learning how to do it, was watching bands like, you know, Van Halen. I saw them 6 times by 1982. You know, and it was just like, oh my God, this is so awesome. Such a big influence, you know, musically, kind of doing something your own way. So I think the Van Halen thing was part of almost every band in the 80s, but I think in Sweet Savage, in our own way, it was kind of like the Brothers, and that we had our own kind of, I didn't do a lot of the tapping, and, you know, I kind of steered it because everyone else was doing it. We just always try to put ourselves a little bit further, and at least off to the side, you know? So I would have to start by saying my Van Halen records, top 5. Van Halen 1, because it's the classic, it's the one, it has Eruption, the production on it, the songs, you know, can't be beat. So that one still has to be number 1 for me, but a very close second is Fair Warning. 4th record, 81, I saw them twice that year. And boy, after that, maybe 1984, that's got to be 3 or 4. It's kind of the swan song of that first version of Van Halen. And some really good original songs, you know, that ended up being big hits. I'm not necessarily talking about Jump, but, you know, between Panama and Hot for Teacher and some of these other ones. Van Halen 2, I think, is very underrated. I've gone back and listened to that quite a bit, actually recently in the last year, and just, you there aren't like any big hits off it or anything like that. And there's that You're No Good cover, but the musicianship and, the vibes in the song.
Light Up the Sky, DOA,
Yeah.
and Somebody Get Me a Doctor. That sells it right there.
Oh, Somebody Get Me a
those were
Doctor, for
heavy.
sure,
Those were
yeah.
heavy.
Yeah.
Back then, that was like
very
metal.
aggressive.
That was like metal back then.
To me, that's the best David Lee Roth era song ever made was Light Up the Sky.
Yeah,
Greatness. I love that song.
great.
And then Women and Children First? Would that be fit?
That's the tour that I first saw Van Halen. And after the second time we saw them, it was actually me and Lane. We were in Huntington, West Virginia, and we saw them. And we waited outside their hotel till 4 in the morning, got to meet them, got their autographs. I got a picture, you'll put it up, of me next to Eddie. And so that was like, got to meet my hero, and I was sick. I just got my driver's license. I was 16, and,
God, lucky.
Second time I saw Van Halen, you wear it to school the next day, the T-shirt, and people don't know, Van Halen, yeah. They hadn't really broke the total mainstream, but if you knew, you knew,
Right.
So that's really that tour, that 1980 Invasion tour, seeing them twice and seeing for the first time was in Cincinnati. Actually, it was the first concert at Cincinnati Riverfront after the people got killed at the Who concert. It was maybe 4 or 5 months before then, and it was like about a month after Bon Scott died. So it was kind of a dark time, being a teenager, and it's like music and going to concerts. It's like, oh man, Bon's gone, and these kids got killed at this Who concert. It was like, but went and saw them. So I have a very fond association with Women and Children First. There's some Romeo Delight, and there's just some awesome songs on it. I could relist that top 5 in a day. I could shuffle it in a different order any day of the week. But it's also a time in my life too, because when Fair Warning came out, it was junior in high school, and drove to the record store every day after school. Is it in yet? Is it in yet? And it's like then it's in. Then I don't go home. I go to my buddy's house, and we're ripping bongs and drinking some beers and blasting it 4 or 5 times before I went home for dinner. So it was just a time in your life too where this stuff was happening. So it's that soundtrack, and I think when people get nostalgic for the Dallas scene, especially all of us who were there and going to the clubs, it was the party, and it was the music and the bands, but it was also just that rite of passage of being a young person but doing adult things. You're staying out late and you're doing all this stuff, and that's such a important part of everybody's life. A lot of people do it in college, some people do it in the military. We did it in rock and roll, and I was just happy to be part of the soundtrack.
Exactly. Chuck, what about you? Top 5?
Van Halen 1 through 5.
You gonna skip Diver down and go to?
Look, the first 3 Van Halen albums I really like, right? But then I got to throw some Sammy in there, man. I'm sorry, OU812 is greatness.
You want that 4th?
No, let's put that last, okay? So the first 4 are with David Lee Roth, so I got to give 1984 a shout out. That was badass. So the first 3 Van Halen albums, 1984, and then OU812.
I got
Love
Van
you,
Halen
Sammy.
1, Van Halen 2, Women and Children First, Fair Warning, and 1984.
That's a good
Everyone
list.
skips Diver down.
I guess the first 5 albums. I don't even know all the names of them. They lost me after 2, I think.
Well, you know what? Ask Jeeves and get the first 5 albums.
Jeeves?
Jeeves, do you have anything? No?
Okay. And also, we've been getting a lot of fan mail recently requesting more Nigel the dog. So we'll see what we can do about that. They only want the dog. I don't know what's going on with that, but we're going to maybe we can get some girls to show their tits to Nigel. I don't know. We'll try that.
Like this video and hit the subscribe button on Godfather TV.
Yes.
And repost it on social media.
For sure, for sure.
Send it to your grandma, anybody. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to get out of here. What's up with your brother? Where's he at? Florida still?
He's in Florida. He's a Florida man. Something happens when people move to Florida. It's
like Tom Brady, living the salt life, man.
Yeah, and they don't want to leave. They're like, no, what? I'm in Florida. You're supposed to come here. This is where people go on vacation. They're supposed to go to Florida. And he's like, I'm already here. He doesn't want to go anywhere.
Right.
No, he comes.
He paints.
He's been painting. He was a natural drawer, like as a kid growing up, and just mad skills. So he does that. He worked on a dive boat for about 15 years, taking people out swimming with wild dolphins in the Bahamas. Like he got paid to do that. It was like And it's actually hard work, working on a liveaboard boat. It's a younger man's job. But he's doing great. I'll tell everybody he says hi. He wanted to come out to the one that Joey played last November.
That's my next question. There's a lot of people that were not very happy that he didn't show up to either one of those events.
Well, the thing is, that gig came together very, very quickly. You know, people around here, probably it's not affected by it because it's local.
Yeah.
But for some of the people that flew in for it, and people did, it was maybe, 10 days notice? I mean, it was pretty short notice. He was, because of some of the commitments, he was unable to come. Looking back, I think he's like, oh man, I really wish I would have, been able to and make it. But, he always says to tell everybody hi. He's not really actively playing music right now, but he's got friends and bands and he hangs out. And it's something for him that if he ever wants to do it, I'm sure he could pick it up in a couple weeks, get your calluses up and chops going, and he could do it anytime.
Randy's in Houston, I guess, still playing. They did a Mind, Body, Soul reunion recently, and he came and did the shows here and showed up to the memorial and everything. It's great seeing Randy. I guess that's it. Anybody else got anything?
Jeeves, Lisa, Ramey, Al? No? All right, well.
Then we want to thank Chris for showing up and telling us his story.
Thanks for having us. It's great being here.
That was an awesome interview.
And we will catch you on the next episode. Good night.
See you guys on the flip-flop. Done. Cut.
Hello, this is Alf. Whenever I'm not eating cats, I'm watching Godfather TV. See ya!